The show's called, the show's called, the show's
Dying
called,
laughing.
the show's called, the show's called, the show's called, the show's
Dying
called,
laughing.
the show's called, the show's called, the show's called, the show's
Dying
called,
laughing.
the show's called.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Dying Laughing. I'm O,
I'm Tim.
and we're in the building.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you, O.
Yeah, it's always good to see you, my friend.
Aw, shucks.
It's got this whole, what was that song, Ebony and Ivory going on?
That's-
Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney?
I don't know.
Oh,
You're
man.
older than I am.
Oh, wow. Well, anyway, we'd like to welcome you to the show, as I said before, and today's topic is one that we'd like to be a little bit serious about, but we're going to joke too.
Right, because it's such a fun topic.
It's a very good topic.
Such a good time.
We're going to talk about survivor guilt.
Guilt. Isn't that, oh, man.
Survivor guilt. It's deep. What do you think?
I think, well, I mean, I got 7 kids, so you can probably figure out I'm Catholic. So I'm real good at feeling guilty. Like,
Yeah.
it's been ingrained, like that Catholic guilt, man. I got it.
Well, I guess I'm not sure what I am. Baptist?
I don't know.
I don't know. Who knows?
You want to be Catholic?
We can start.
Okay, cool. We'll talk offline.
We'll talk offline. But like I said, we're going to talk about survivor guilt, and I'm sure a lot of you listeners out there can relate. We want to probably start off with the first topic or subtopic underneath of survivor guilt, which is, the guilt you feel when you're sick and you're going through the actual process of
Yeah.
dealing with the cancer.
Yeah.
And the guilt you feel. It's definitely a different aspect.
For sure. Yeah, it's not the kind of guilt I've ever had to worry about, like in the confessional.
No,
Not that kind of guilt.
Not that
But
kind of guilt.
even before we get into that, maybe like this idea of survivor's guilt it's real and it's common.
Right.
Like it's not a bad thing.
No,
Like
it's not.
people feel guilty about this stuff. People with diseases like ours and cancer and that kind of stuff feel bad.
Yeah, it's real emotions.
Yeah, it really is. And there's nothing wrong with feeling guilty about some of this stuff. But it can get a little out of hand too,
Definitely.
especially if you think that no one else feels this way and I'm just going to bury this. I'm going to shove it way down and let it fester in there for a while and see what happens.
Right. I mean, you have to embrace these different emotions.
Yeah, lean into them.
And you're not the only person.
Definitely not.
You have to take the time out of all the stuff that's going around you and process it, because it's a real emotion.
Yeah.
It's a real feeling, and there's nothing to be ashamed about, as you stated.
Yeah, and you have to kind of process it like in your own way, like in the way that
Right.
that makes sense to you. Like there's no wrong or right way to feel guilty or get through this. The whole gamut of emotions that comes along with being sick like this and everything that it implies. Like we talked about that briefly, just how last time the experience that you have as a patient is vastly different than the experience of a caretaker or a caregiver or
Right.
a spouse or a girlfriend or children. Like not wrong or bad or different, just different, different experiences.
And they feel guilt too,
They absolutely
but
do.
it's a different
They
kind.
they've got.
So it's just a different kind.
Yeah.
So just the theme of feeling guilty is something that is experienced not only, like you said, with the caregivers and whatever. I mean, there's relationships you build inside the hospital with the nurses and the doctors, and it might be a little bit different for them.
Yeah, and
from
their
a-
coping mechanisms are very different. And I talked to a guy a couple days ago that worked in Penn State, not in the hospital, but he did work in oncology for a while. And he said, after a while, you start thinking, I'm not going to get to know you too well.
Yeah.
Because you work there for 2 years and you start to, you meet the patients that come in there really great. And then you come in like, oh yeah, he's not there anymore.
You're right. And a lot of times what winds up happening, especially from that side, maybe the medical side, the medical field, you start to get desensitized.
Yeah.
Because you see all of it,
Yeah.
over and
Over and
over
over again. It's like our story is not that unique,
You're right, exactly. So,
unfortunately.
so with that being said, can you expand upon how you felt and the guilt you felt while you were sick?
Yeah, man, sure. So I have a big family, right? There's a lot of us. There's
Really? You
yeah,
sure?
I do. I do. I got 7 kids.
I didn't know 7 was a big number.
7 is a big number when you're talking about children.
Obviously.
When you're talking about dollars, 7 is not very many of
Not
them.
much.
But 7 children is a lot.
Right.
The oldest is 19, the youngest is 6. So we've got, last year we had a kid in college and a kid in kindergarten at the same time. It's a big spread.
Right.
And so it's a lot to run my household, and just to get from morning to night, there is a lot of moving parts to get through there. And I was on the sidelines,
Right.
like just watching and feeling like completely useless.
Yeah.
Like I can't do anything. And even when I want to do things, I can't. And I try to be helpful and I'm not. And which isn't that different than now, but I'm not the most helpful. But at the time, like it was really bad. Like I felt, especially for my wife, for Trisha, to see her have to take on everything,
Mm-hmm.
like all of it, like all the cooking, all the cleaning, all the homework, all the bedtime stuff, like all that stuff fell squarely on her shoulders. I did as much as I could, but it was not a whole lot.
Basically, all the normal life duties that you already had
Yeah,
prior to
in a
cancer.
good marriage, it's never 50-50, but it's never 90-10 either. Like,
Right.
Like that's not a good relationship. That's not a good setup. That won't last long. But even a couple nights ago, I was helping Shawnee, my 10-year-old, with his math homework, and Trisha was looking at it and had kind of like a flashback. I thought, man, like a year ago, I was doing all of this, and I was so tired,
Right.
just so wore out and beat up from just everything, like just cooking breakfast, like over and over again. And we had help. Like my parents would come out and help out. My sister would come out and help out. And we had, people that set up meal trains for us and food came in, which I'm so grateful for that we had, all those opportunities for people to help out. But it's still like every day is a grind,
Right.
and I felt awful adding to it.
Gotcha.
Just being, I'm no longer helping. I'm now part of the problem.
You're part of the problem.
Right.
And that's what you felt.
Yeah, that's what I felt. I felt like I am part of the problem here. Like things are tense and rough, and everybody's stressed out. And the big part of that, the big chunk of that is, well, Dad's got cancer.
Right.
And I couldn't do a whole heck of a lot, and I felt horrible.
And it never really seems like in your mind, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but in my experience, it never really seems like it makes it right when they say, well, you have cancer.
Right,
You
yeah.
never feel like, oh, yeah, that explains everything.
Right,
That
even
makes
though it does.
Right.
Right, but I do, but like I should be able to do more. I should be able to do something. I shouldn't be more of a burden.
Correct.
Yeah, but that's part of the guilt that I felt too, is that not just Trisha and like my parents are coming out back and forth from New Jersey. I know I'm from New Jersey, which is,
Jersey?
We just lost half our listeners.
You probably.
So try not to hold that
it depends
against
on
me.
what part of Jersey.
The good part.
Yeah, okay.
So my parents would drive out from New Jersey. They're retired. They're not young. It's a long drive, and you come to my house, which is stressful. Like even on a good day, it's stressful. Like they come out and spend 3-4 days, and then that's about as much as we can ask. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's just loud and complicated every day. Just the normal din is just there's a lot of it. There's a lot of background noise happening all the time. It's just tough.
I can't imagine. The household was just full.
It's full.
Yeah.
It's full, and I love it. And I love every one of the kids. I wouldn't trade any one of them for the world. And I love each of them, but all of them is a lot.
It's like a form big family. Like they're all individual robots. And,
Yeah.
it's a tough deal. I don't have 7 kids. I have 3.
Which is a lot.
Which
like,
is
don't let that be
don't-
discouraging.
Yeah. Children in general
Yeah.
is a lot.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine 7, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, that's okay.
So in that process of with your family coming down, what are some of the things that you thought about when they were traveling back and forth, or whatever the case may be? I know you explained about the homework and you just felt like you weren't helping out, but what are some like examples?
Examples of what? Like, what do you mean?
Well, a real life example of what happened during that process and what you felt at that moment. For instance, you mentioned about them coming back and forth down to the house. Give us a situation where that happened and how you felt that particular time or that moment.
I don't know if I could think of one particular time. It's all kind of this, this chemo-induced haze. I was not the sharpest at the time. I'm realizing now I read a lot of books that I don't remember.
Okay.
Because I love to read. I'm a voracious reader. I love reading.
Okay.
And I picked up a book that it's on my Kindle. It says I read it. I have no recollection of it at all.
Wow.
I remember the first couple pages, and after that, it's like, this is a new story.
They speak about chemo brain, and it's a real thing.
It is. It really is. This is the first time I really felt like, wow, that's weird. I know I read this, but it's just, the information is there. I just can't find it. So I don't know, maybe the information isn't there. Maybe record never got pushed on that, on that one. But it just, this overwhelming feeling of burden, this feeling of being dead weight.
Right.
And part of, not just my parents, but like feeling like I can't support my family.
Right.
Like I'm supposed to be taking care of you people. Like I'm supposed to be providing, doing all the things that a husband and a father do.
Right.
Put food on the table and pay the bills and keep the children, warm and clothed, basic stuff.
Right.
I couldn't do it. And I felt horrible about that. That was a huge weight on me too. Like, I feel like I am failing as a father and a husband, even though I am clearly sick.
Right. Right.
Like there's absolutely,
it's obvious.
yeah, there's something wrong. Like I'm not just being lazy.
Right.
At that point. I've been lazy, but this was not one of those times. Like you feel like at least I felt like such a failure as a provider and as a father and as a husband, living literally on the charity of other people.
Right.
And I didn't like I've never been comfortable with being on the receiving end of charity.
Right.
There's been people occasionally like, will give Trish a loaded handshake at church, right? And there's a $100 gift card for Giant or something in there.
Right. Which was pretty ingenious.
It was cool.
Yeah.
But I hated feeling like someone looked at our family and thought, you know what, they could probably use a little food.
Right. You got the pride thing working.
Yeah, like definitely do. Like, and pride, maybe that's something we should go to confession about. But yeah, like it's one of those 7 things. Deadly sins, that's one of them.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of them.
Is
yeah.
it 70?
There's 7 deadly sins, and
Okay.
pride is definitely one of them.
Yep, pride. I think you're right about that.
I'm pretty sure. I'm absolutely positive.
Vanity is another one.
Yeah. Gluttony.
Gluttony.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lust. There's a bunch.
Yep.
They're all a lot of fun, but you shouldn't get too involved in it. But the point was, I didn't like, even when that happened, that was like a couple bucks every now and then. Someone thought, hey, you know what? I bet they've got a lot of kids. They could probably use a little help.
Yeah.
But I hated feeling like people looked at my family and thought they could use a little help. But now, like, that's it. Like, there's nothing I can do. I'm just sitting in my brown chair trying to pass this poison through me, and there's nothing I can do. And people saw that and set up meal trains. They set up a GoFundMe. Like, the kids' tuition for school was paid.
Right.
Like, that I never would have dreamed to ask for, and really struggled with taking, with accepting it. But because knowing that I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I guess at some point, that's where it gets to.
Yeah.
At some point, it reaches a point where you're feeling so sick, all that stuff goes out the window.
Yeah, you just have to give it up. It's like, you know what, I can't.
You got to spend all your energy trying to feel better and fight.
Yeah.
The chemo, the treatment, the cancer, because they're going on simultaneously.
Yeah, right. The disease is no fun, and the medicine is awful.
Right. They always say if the disease don't kill you, the medicine will.
Right.
So, it's definitely a complex situation when you're put in that predicament.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's your fault.
No.
I don't think anybody raises their hand and says, "Oh, give me cancer.
Give me some of that." Yeah,
Give me
because
some
I
of
could
that."
use a year or 2 off.
Right.
I'm tired.
So I don't think anybody really, I hope not. You really need a different kind of conversation. You're in a dark place.
Yeah. But so one of the things that I learned from that someone pointed this out to me. Is like, look, there's other people that need to give. They're looking for opportunities to help, and you're providing that opportunity for them. You know, you're giving people an opportunity to be helpful. There's people that feel helpless and want to do something, and this is something they can do.
Right.
You know, and that was a good perspective.
I struggled with that.
Yeah.
That was one of the things from my end that I've struggled with that in life, period.
Just, in general.
Forget the cancer portion of it. A lot of pride, a lot of, that male ego thing.
Well, you're a very handsome man, so it makes sense that you'd be
I
prideful.
don't know about all that. But yeah, a lot of pride, a lot of male ego thing going on. And some of the things that I experienced they were definitely similar. Like I said, I have 3 children. I'm not married, but my girl was there. I don't even, because, they say significant other, because, calling a grown woman your girl is kind of weird. You know what I mean? Lady.
My lady friend, my special friend.
But
what other terrible pet names can we come up with?
Right.
Maybe we should do that another time.
But my daughter is of age. She's 26 years old, and so she was a huge part of the caretaking process. My girl for sure, and my daughter as well. I don't want to try to, one live further away than the other.
Right.
But in the beginning, one of the things I felt guilty where my boys were both living with me at the time frame. And I definitely felt that, felt inadequate with my fatherly duties.
Yeah, inadequate. That's a good way to put it.
I had to do something that I didn't really want to do. I wasn't dependent necessarily on their other half, their parent, their mothers. And then all of a sudden now I have to, because of the cancer, I have to reach out to them and put myself, as I felt, put myself in a position like I was begging for help.
Right. I hate asking for help.
And I hate asking for help. I really do.
Yeah,
it takes every ounce, every iota of molecules in me to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I'm doing better now. I am doing better. But early in my life, oh man, cut it out. I might do something wrong just not to
get help doing it right. Yeah.
But that's sort of where it was. I had to, ask their mothers, hey man, I got to do this to get well, because I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I was working a full-time job, doing stuff on the side full-time, then raising 2 boys full-time.
Yeah.
And it just got overwhelming, and having cancer full-time.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, I was sick for quite some time, and didn't even realize that that's what my issue was, and it just was getting worse and worse until I came to that point. But I felt guilty about calling them up, and I felt guilty about not being able to take care of my boys, handle my business, and I got to call their moms and tell them I need some help. And then that carried over even to my job. See, I didn't do that. I didn't do the GoMe fund and all. I didn't do anything. I didn't really talk to people about my cancer. It took a while before I even told my family.
Right.
Because I was processing it myself. And part of the guilt thing I dealt with was, or I don't even know if that's guilt, just to process it in the beginning, is I just didn't want people just, oh, I heard about your situation, and every time you turn around, because it's bad enough that my mind is on full speed ahead thinking about it. I don't want to be reminded of it every place I step, every place I go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do. I mean, for me, it got hard to go to church.
Yeah.
Because everyone's, how you doing? And you can you can almost, you can smell the pity.
Right.
Like, you can see it in their eyes, like, oh, I feel so bad. I was so sick of being pitied.
And that's what you feel like.
Right? Like, I can't do this anymore. I remember, there was a church picnic, and I told Chris, I'm going to go, but I'm going to ride my bike there, and I'm going to leave. Like, I can't deal with all the people in the parish coming up and asking how I'm doing. And I understand, and I feel bad about that, right? I feel good about that, because these people want to know how I am.
They're
Right? They're genuinely concerned.
concerned.
Right? How are you doing, Tim?
Right.
But to tell the same story
Over and
over.
Right.
Hey, well, things are kind of rough. The first treatment didn't work, so now I got to do this. We're trying
Right.
to figure out this or CAR T, blah, blah. Like,
And then the caveat to that is like, even though it didn't work and you get a new treatment, it'll work and
Everything's gonna be fine.
Everything's gonna be fine, and you're like,
Really?
15%.
I got a 15% chance of being fine.
Right, and that doesn't sound like a lot when you're giving a tip.
Right.
But when you're talking about life or death,
Right, yeah.
it's a different. When you start talking about numbers in that perspective,
Right, yeah.
yeah, it just carried over with me the same way. Like going to work was hard because I'm also at work and getting sick. So
Yeah.
people are looking at me different. And, I got to take these long disappearing breaks. I got to go on break,
Yeah, for like 3 days.
like 4-hour break.
Yeah.
And it was just very challenging. And even when I was in the hospital, I felt super guilty about my girl having to take time off from work.
Yeah.
And do all those different things and not be able to, knowing in my head that she could be doing something else.
Right. My sickness is keeping you from doing something you want to do.
Right. Like you're supposed to save that for you.
Yeah.
Doing something you want to do.
Yeah.
And even though she wanted to be there, it still didn't make any sense. And even my daughter was doing sort of the same thing, but she's traveling 2-3 hours to just.
Funny story about your daughter. When we were at that event a couple weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
I had no idea how old she was. I thought she was in high school. It's like, so when are you going back to high school? She's like, actually, I'm a guard for the Supreme Court. I have a gun on me right now. Like, oh,
Yeah,
sorry, don't shoot me.
Yeah, it's what's the word I'm looking for? Deceiving.
Deceiving.
My daughter, because I didn't recognize her my damn self. Because I haven't seen her. I guess I hate to say fully dressed up. How they say you clean up. You clean up well. But yeah, she. I'm super proud of her, and not to get too deep with that. That's what she does.
Yeah. Nah, she's a cool girl. You did a good job with her, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Her mother helped. I got to give her
I'm
some
sure.
credit. But ultimately, yeah, she just coming long distances. She has a real huge responsibility as far as her job.
Right.
It's not like other jobs where you can just be calling off. I mean, she
Right.
works at the
Gotta
Supreme
make sure
Court.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg is okay.
Right. She got to make sure the justices are safe.
Yeah.
And they don't get holidays off, really. They got to
No.
find somebody to work for them, or you better be there.
Yeah.
So, like I said, with that in conjunction with, just everything, the financial aspect of it,
yeah.
the money that they were spending on me because I couldn't go do it myself, or
Right.
they didn't even want me to. It just the overwhelming guilt of these people are taking time out of their lives to help you, and you can't even help yourself, and you feel helpless.
Yeah, completely.
And it's just a terrible thing. And I don't know if any of you guys out there have experienced that. I'm sure you have.
Right.
We're being a little cocky right now.
Yeah, we're so special.
So
The other thing that bugged me was my gym. You were talking about work.
Right.
I've been building this CrossFit Lancaster gym for 8 years at this point, and we really had something I think pretty special. It was a really unique community. It was a really great group. It was some of the finest human beings I ever met worked out there and worked for me, and it was amazing. When I got sick, everybody stepped up
right.
and said, "We're going to run this. Like, we're going to take this. We're going to run with it. You get better. We'll take care of this." And it was,
It's tough, man.
I wanted to be there so badly to be a part of the community, to still exercise, to still do that, but also to not feel like I just took my business and dumped it on all of y'all.
Exactly.
That's a lot to ask of someone that's getting paid like $20 an hour when they're coaching.
And to go along with that, I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah.
When you have a scenario like that, you feel like when you have other people's livelihoods under your hands.
Yeah.
When you own a business and you have employees and you're in this situation now where you can barely take care of your family, let alone the
Now,
employees.
yeah,
you
yeah,
got
they can't get it either.
They can't get it either, and they got families to take care of. It's a huge guilt trip
Yeah.
of feeling inadequate, lacking thereof, any kind of.
Yeah. Thankfully, most of my guys were all part-time, so yeah, maybe I didn't provide for their car payment, but still, like they jumped in and took over
Right.
because they didn't want to see this thing that we had built, through our blood, sweat, and tears over the last almost a decade, fall apart.
Uh-huh.
But then when I went to the gym, like when I was in treatment, I go, I'm all bald and I'm fat, and because I got fat on chemo, like.
Yeah, that's
Who
weird.
gets cancer and gets fat like I do? I put 30 pounds on.
That is a whole nother episode, but that's definitely
in chemo. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And so, like, I used to be good at that. Like, I used to be good at doing the CrossFit. Like, I was a competitive athlete. I wasn't winning anything huge, but I could go to a local competition and hold my own.
Right.
And now I go to the gym and I can barely do the girls' weight, and I'm suffering and dying, and I'm the last one done. Everybody claps when you're done, which is kind of cool, but man, I felt like my body just failed me.
Right. And I'll tell you a funny story going along with the guilt portion of it is once I came out of the hospital and I was home recovering from my stem cell transplant, my daughter came to stay with me to take care of me. And funny story is, I'm doing what I'm doing. And one day we're sitting there eating and she said, "Dad, how do you feel?" I said, "Well, today my stomach hurt a little bit." She said, "No, how do you feel in general?" I said, "Well, pretty cool." And the funny portion of the story is her expectations of what I was supposed to be like at that point was I was going to be like, "Oh," and she was going to have to carry me up the steps and bathe me and all that, which would have been a whole nother level
That's
of guilt.
just weird.
Yeah.
You should feel guilty about that.
That would have been just too much. But it's just a really funny story about, she feeling a certain type of way of what she, in her mind, what she envisioned,
Right.
what was going to happen. And I know this part is a positive thing, but there was some level of guilt in the beginning where she was thinking, man, somebody's going to have to take care of my dad. It's going to have to be me. And this is what I'm saying. She literally moved from where she lived at. I don't want to disclose that.
Right.
But she lived 2 hours away and she moved in with me and she's got a place to live on her own. And that's not how I normally operate. You're grown. You live where you live.
Right.
And I live where I live.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my kids out the house too.
Well, that's...
Out you go.
You got a little bit for that.
I got some. Well, one's out.
Well, that's good.
One's out.
You got 6 more to go.
He came back over the summer. We told him when he left for school, and he only goes to school on the other side of town. It's not like he went a long way away.
Oh, I got you.
But he's living on campus. And we told him...
So it's like a long behind sleepover.
Kind of, yeah.
He sleeps over wherever he goes.
Wherever he is. In last semester, he didn't have a roommate. Somehow the guy that was supposed to be in his room got assigned to 2 different rooms, and he went to one. This is the first time Nick didn't have a roommate ever.
Oh.
And he loved it. He was a huge fan of living alone. So, and we told him when he left, like, look, you always have a place here to stay. As long as you're in school, we'll take care of you. And that's technically true.
Right.
He has a bed that he can sleep in.
But that's
about it. There's not a lot more room.
There's not a lot more to it.
No, his brother, I don't think his brother let the door hit Nick in the ass on the way out before he rearranged the furniture and painted the walls in his room. Like, it was nuts. But
well, ultimately, guilt is a huge thing.
It
and
is.
Another aspect of guilt, or another aspect that comes along with guilt is the guilt you feel when you realize that your treatment and what's happening to you is going good and it's not going so great for another person, especially when you build relationships from being sick.
Yeah.
People you've met in the hospital and things of that nature.
yeah,
And that's a real that is a different, I guess, form or emotion from the guilt.
yeah, it's not a guilt feeling like you can't do something, just wondering why yours is working and theirs isn't, or like
Right. It gets super complicated because I know for me, with that situation, it was more so, and it happens still to this day, when you hear different people, have passed away or they're in hospice or it's not looking so good. And, you ask yourself, I know I do. I ask myself a lot of the times, why me?
yeah,
You know, and
I mean, geez, even this morning we were here and you took yourself a fistful of pills, right? Like he had a fistful of pills. Like, well, I take them twice a day, but you still had a fistful of pills. And I'm thinking, man, that sucks.
yeah,
I'm glad I don't have to do that. And then I felt really bad. Like, man, like shit,
Right.
mine is gone and yours is like never going to go. Like you're going to be taking a fistful of pills for the rest of your life.
and that is a great example of how just that portion of guilt just triggers automatically.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if you ever get over that.
I don't know.
I don't know. I hopefully I live long enough to see.
Right.
And maybe that'll be episode 5,000 or something. Who knows?
Oh, man.
But the point is you're right. And I say to myself, man, I don't want to take all these pills.
I'll bet, yeah.
But then there is an option, and that option is the dirt.
Right. You could not take the pills.
I cannot take the pills and just take the dirt.
Right.
But I don't want to take the long dirt nap.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I got stuff to do.
I got stuff to do. But it is real where we were at the support group, which I highly recommend to everyone who's dealing with anything. It doesn't have to be cancer. I think going
You should go to a support group specific to what you're dealing with.
to what
though.
you're dealing with. I'm not saying if you're alcoholic, go to
Don't go to the cancer support group. They're not going to help. I want to drink when I'm there.
I don't think it's going to do
Oh,
you
this is so bad.
any damn good.
No.
But yeah, please go to a support group that's relative to your situation. But, you know, at the support group, I was talking to one of the folks there, and they were mentioning about someone who had done the Live Strong program, which is another thing. I'm doing all these plugs. It's
Man, you seriously.
which I'm doing currently, the Live Strong program.
As an avid cyclist, I have feels about Live Strong.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know, that's the Lance Armstrong thing. But, you know, with his scandal, a lot of their funding
dried yeah, it
up
disappeared.
very quickly. But they still have it in place as best they can. And so point being is one of the folks from the support group had a friend that did the program. And it's a 12-week program, but even inside that program, they started with this individual. And as they're doing the program, they're going along and the individual stops coming. Next thing you know, that individual wind up passing away.
Right.
And the guy's telling me the story, and I just felt a deep, overwhelming, instantaneous feeling of sadness because I thought my guilt thing says, man, why did that guy, why did he not make it?
Right.
And here I am standing here talking on this microphone.
Yeah, and just this week, just yesterday or 2 days ago, we joked about last time just how I was the first person to get CAR-T at Hershey.
Okay.
Because they wanted someone that was going to make it. Right there. Like they're looking for a success the first time.
Right.
And I was. And
Still,
so far,
I say you were the guinea pig.
I was a guinea pig,
Go
but I
ahead.
was a successful guinea pig.
Right.
All right, so far I'm doing all right. The guy that got it after me was in the clear for 4 months, and then his cancer came back. Yeah, and what I didn't know, and I know at the time, or I know now, but I didn't know at the time, there's
Well, what's that, before you go, what's that in comparison to how long you've done it? And you said he did it and it was 4 months later. How long have you done it in?
Sure. So I'm a year out exactly.
Okay.
I went in on September 10th. Well, September 9th, I got the last round of chemo. September 10th, I had the treatment.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm like exactly a year out.
Okay.
And it was September 10th, and I went to go visit this guy. I don't want to say his name. I'm not sure.
No, don't do that.
But I meant to go visit him. But what I didn't know at the time was there's a blood brain and a blood ball barrier, right? Somewhere over all this evolution and design and all that, your body has decided that those are two very important parts.
Yeah,
So
they are.
we're going to not let poison get in there. So when you take chemo, or in this case, CAR-T, that medicine doesn't get to your brain, doesn't get to your testicles. It just doesn't go there.
Okay.
But cancer sure does.
Yeah.
And it'll hang out and wait.
It's in the trenches.
It's exactly what it is.
Hiding
it's,
in the bushes.
It's hiding in the Fertile Crescent down there, just waiting for things to
Those
settle
round
down.
bushes. Just lurking.
Just lurking, waiting for stuff to settle down. And then it comes back, right? It's an insidious little disease.
Yes,
and
it is.
It'll wait for things to kind of simmer down and then pop up again. And that's what happened. And I found out about that like when I was about 4 months out. It's like, I called my doctor, like, hey, are my balls okay?
You're right.
He's like, I think so, but we'll check.
And
All right,
it's a
good.
sensitive topic.
It is. It's a
No
sensitive
pun
area.
intended.
So I was there on my 1 year anniversary of this successful treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the guy that got it after me, literally laying in his deathbed. You know, like I said, hey, Leo, I'm here. And he kind of opened an eye. Yeah, and he's doped to the gills. They just want to give him, you know, another week or so of life without any pain.
Right.
Yeah, and here his wife is telling me how thankful she was that they got 4 more months of him without any cancer.
Wow.
And I'm trying to, like, I'm excited that I'm looking for another 4 decades.
Right.
You know, and this guy's thankful that they got 4 months.
months.
Like, oh, geez. Like, I definitely felt some kind of way. Yeah, and I got out of there pretty fast. All right, I saw Leo. If I could stay for another 12 hours, he's not going to know any better when I was here. But then his wife messaged me. She's like, hey, are you okay?
Right.
And that made me feel bad too. Like, she's the one standing by her husband's deathbed and she's comforting me.
Trying to comfort
because
you.
I feel good.
Right.
Right? Like, that's a weird spot to be in, man.
It's completely, you feel completely unjust about, or not unjust, you feel I'm trying to think of the word I want to say. You don't feel like you deserve it.
Yeah, it's not exactly unworthy, but it's in that neighborhood.
Right. And even with what you discussed, it becomes the time situation, like the 4 months that she mentioned.
Right.
She just wanted another 4. She was happy with another 4 months. You know, that's what cancer does. That's the guilt thing about it is it makes you think back on your life even to that point.
Right.
Like, have you wasted time?
Right.
Or all the time you might have wasted and you feel guilty about that. You're like, oh man, I've wasted so much. I've done so many unnecessary things.
Right.
Yeah.
Or now looking at it like, I've been given this second chance. Am I doing the best that I can with it?
There it is.
Right? Like, that's some angst. Some chemo angst there, like cancer angst. It's just like,
It takes you to a whole nother
yeah,
level.
like, what am I doing with this? And
If you are a survivor, I guess the guilt catalyst to push you is, okay, if I survive this and this, what am I supposed to be doing?
right,
Like, what can I do?
right,
You feel compelled to do something super, like how humble you feel about being alive. You feel that same overwhelming feeling to do something for it.
yeah.
You
At
know,
least we do,
yeah, somebody else might go right back to what they've been doing.
and that's okay too. Like, there's nothing wrong with
right,
that. Like,
if that's
you're
what you wanna
thinking,
do.
like, you don't have to start a nonprofit or start a podcast, or,
Right. And
you
that
know,
was the reason
raise a
for
ton of
this
money.
podcast.
That's exactly right. That we felt compelled to do something.
You know, to try to get
And
whatever
we have no
thought it
other
could.
marketable skills.
None.
So we're going to talk in a microphone because
That's
we
what we're
can
gonna
do that.
Because we can talk.
We can.
We just never really got people to really listen.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We'll see.
But yeah, it's the whole point of, you know, when somebody else is suffering and you're feeling fine, what do you do with that?
Right.
And how do you tell? And you know, the deeper thing is when you said you were going to see the gentleman, you know, what do you say to that guy?
Yeah. There ain't much.
You know, what do you say? You're things are going well for you. So how's your day going?
I think I said see you later. Like,
you know,
I probably won't. Like, not for a while. but
Right.
What the hell am I saying? See you later?
And as
Like,
morbid as that sounds,
Yeah.
it's real.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you're sitting there, or even having a phone conversation with somebody, and you know they're, it's just the words, and they say, well, how you doing?
hey, you know, things are looking pretty good.
Pretty
Yeah.
good. You
Well, you want to downplay how good you're feeling.
right. And I'm gonna be real with you. I've told some people, and then I feel guilty about that. I've told them like, oh, you know, things ain't going so great, just because I didn't know what to say to make them feel better or
Right.
something.
Right.
And then I feel guilty about making up a story.
Because that's our responsibility, is to make other people feel better about our disease. Like, that's our job. Somehow.
Somehow we inherit that thought process.
But there is something to that. Like, there's people that understand cancer and get it and ask intelligent questions and, you know, that kind of stuff. And there's people that just don't.
Right.
They just don't. and it's a weird balancing act to talk to, figure out what's going on and how to have a conversation, and because you don't want to overwhelm people with it either, like
Exactly.
and just dump everything on them, but
They don't deserve that either.
right, that's not fair to them either. Like when you ask how you doing, like how often do you really care how that person's doing? Right? Like it's a space filler.
like
How you doing? Look at the weather.
It's an icebreaker. It's something to say. I call it surface talk.
I'm good. How are you? Like
Yeah.
there's not much to it. Like very rarely do you ask how you do and expect to get this verbal diarrhea of all
Mm-hmm.
your cancer stuff. Like, but I forget where I was going with that.
It's okay.
But
That's what we do.
that's what we do. We forget a lot of stuff. But yeah, it was a very weird and honestly, if I would have been much less likely to go and visit him if I didn't know we were talking about this today.
I got you. Got you.
So that fueled the guilt too. Like I'm only here for podcast content, which is not true.
Right.
But it was in my head. It was there. Like I'm talking about this. Maybe I should, go see him.
Yeah, and once again, I don't necessarily know if there's a right or wrong, and that's what's so deep about it, because you're back to the why me or this and that, and I don't want to get too deep with it because that's a whole another level
Right.
of maybe
That's a whole other conversation.
whole nother conversation, maybe on a spiritual level or wherever you're at with it.
Yeah.
But I do know that one of the things that affected me heavily is when I was in the hospital and I was getting the chemo and feeling sick and going through all those different things. There was two different things that happened. One was it was difficult for me to talk with folks when my treatment went pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because you're normally, I don't know if this is how all hospitals work, but normally they try to keep cancer patients all on the same floor. Birds of a feather flock together type
Something
thing.
like that. Yeah.
Something sort of like that.
Quarantine, segregation.
That whole thing.
Yeah. Not segregation. That's not what I meant.
Yeah,
Not that kind.
not that kind.
Not that kind.
But ultimately, on that floor, you're going to run into somebody who's getting chemo too. It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
But you're walking and you talk, and because it's a lonely walk sometimes in those hallways.
Yeah, man.
That's kind of how we bumped into each other.
Yeah.
But you're having a conversation. They're getting the same thing, in this particular case, stem cell transplant. And they're like, yeah, I'm vomiting, I'm this and I'm that. How's yours going? I'm not vomiting.
Yeah.
You just feel guilty about, well, I did, let's put it that way. Guilty about, hey, my treatment is going pretty as smooth as it can go.
Yeah.
For getting chemo in comparison to what the horror stories that they tell you.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
When I got the first rounds of art job, they prepped us for vomit everywhere was what I expected.
Exactly.
Just all
The
kinds
whole
of vomit.
room just has plastic bags everywhere.
We had plastic sheets on the bed, and we had everything double sheeted and bleach everywhere, and like I never really got sick. I didn't
Right.
get like sick. I had no energy, and I was a jerk.
Right.
But I never threw up, like never once. And
Me the same. I don't know about the jerk part.
well, yeah,
I got you.
You probably weren't, but yeah, you hear the horror stories of like I had ulcers in my mouth and in my stomach, and I couldn't eat, and like I had stuff that tasted like metal, which in the grand scheme of things is not that big a deal.
Right.
When you're talking about what you're fighting.
I
Like,
agree.
okay, so I got a cold sore and my coffee isn't delicious. Like I could really have this a lot worse.
Exactly.
But yeah, you feel bad and you see other people whose treatment's not going well. Like, ooh,
And you're back into that. You're back in that same predicament again of
that same question. Why is it me? and
why
not him?
me, and what do you say?
Yeah. Right.
You don't want to be rude and be just like act like you didn't hear them,
Right. It sucks for you.
or say, "Woo, I'm doing, woo, this is going great."
I'm sure yours is gonna get better.
Exactly.
Right? Like
I'm pretty sure. Just give it a little bit more
give
time.
it some time, yeah.
Give it more time.
but yeah, when I'm looking down at this guy a couple days ago, I'm thinking, man, like this could just as easily have been reversed. And there's no good reason. There's no rhyme or reason. I mean, he's a little older than I was for sure, but he also had a much easier time in the treatment. He got the same treatment that I did, and I got my ass kicked. Yeah,
So you had the reverse situation.
He had a reverse
a
situation.
smooth treatment,
Yeah, but it didn't really stick.
It didn't stick.
But mine was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But here I am a year out.
Well, first of all, with that, I want to make sure, very thankful to be here
Heck
in this position. But this is a real situation, a real thing that happens when you're feeling guilt in these different moments.
Yeah.
One of the other things that was very hard to deal with was, while I was going through everything I was going through in the hospital, there's times where they allow you to walk further than just the chemo ward. That's what I'll call it. And you go downstairs in the hospital. I was in Hershey as well.
Yeah.
That should be obvious. That's how we met.
Right.
Walking through Hershey.
Because he's chocolate.
He's white chocolate.
Very, very white.
I call somebody else white chocolate, but we won't get into all that. But ultimately, walking through the hallways, and then I see children.
Right.
Children with cancer, and I don't know what kind of cancer. It doesn't even
Doesn't
matter.
matter.
Doesn't even matter. I
Right,
know they
a
have
sick
cancer.
Kid is bad.
They're pushing it along the IV. You know what it is.
Yeah.
And they're just smiling, and I'll say, we are punks. Children are the true soldiers and warriors. They are tough.
Yeah.
And you see them walking through the hospital, and I said to myself, man, who am I to be bitching
Right.
about my little... Here you go, feeling guilty, but you do have cancer.
Right.
Like,
You have a legit thing.
You have a legit thing, but like, they haven't even, in my mind, depending on their age, but it didn't really matter. They haven't even lived yet.
Yeah, nothing.
They haven't really lived. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so then I started feeling guilty. And there was times when I walked down there and said, man, and I was dead serious. There was times where I felt like, hey, man, this is me. God, hey, make them well. You can. I've lived my life.
Right.
You don't really maybe want that, but if that was a trade-off, for me, I certainly would want somebody's child to live. That's why I'm an organ donor. I don't know if they can take my organs now.
No one's touching our organs anymore, man. You are no longer an organ donor.
Yeah, I'm no longer an organ donor. But that's the reality of where you understand where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
It's that you feel guilty when you see a child with cancer and you're a grown person. And yeah, you got cancer and it's real to you too, but you just feel like, why cancer, period?
Right.
And especially in little children.
Why for a kid?
Why? What did they do?
Nothing.
And we're back to the why thing, and it gets deeper, and you don't know where to go with that.
Yeah.
But that's the reality that I was in, walking through those hallways, just feeling guilty about me having cancer and complaining.
Right.
I don't have any room to complain about anything.
Right.
I mean, that's how I felt.
Yeah. Kids and being sick is just miserable. Nobody likes that.
Nobody likes that in general. So, ultimately, you just have to come to a point where to recognize that, or at least I'm starting to think that just guilt just comes with it.
Yeah, it's part of the package.
It's part of the package, just like the side effects of whatever. There's a side effect.
Feelings of vomit and worthlessness.
And it's just it's difficult to express it all in one podcast or express it in words, but it's something that you have to deal with, I believe.
Yeah.
You have to deal with if you feel in those type of emotions, I think you need to, I highly suggest you do.
Yeah, you probably should come to terms with it in some way.
Exactly. And maybe talk about it.
Yeah.
To whoever you feel.
But hopefully even just knowing that there's other people that are feeling that way is helpful.
Right.
Like feeling guilty and alone is a really bad combination.
Right.
So if you are listening to this and you're feeling that way, that's okay.
Right.
And you're definitely not alone. Like all of us are feeling this. Like all of us are feeling this.
And I think we brushed on it, but there's another aspect of relative guilt.
Yeah.
And
that's the phrase we're coining it.
That's the phrase
relative
we're coining.
Guilt.
And I'll let you explain our new phrase, relative guilt.
I think what we had in mind was like when you see someone else is sick and you compare yours to theirs and you feel, on one hand, thankful that yours isn't as bad as theirs is.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but then you feel terrible for feeling good that you're not as sick as they are. Like, oh, geez. Like, there's a guy in my church, just, he was feeling sick. He's like 20-something years old. He just had a baby a year ago or so. And he was feeling sick, went to the doctor. They rushed him down to Johns Hopkins. Now he's got leukemia.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, that is bad.
That's bad news.
I'm so glad I didn't have that.
Exactly.
And like, oh.
Yeah. Well, is that the right thing to say?
I don't know if I should feel that way or not.
I think it happens more often than not.
Yeah.
Because, I had a situation. My situation is what it is. But, I was told by a friend, like, hey, he's got stomach cancer, and it's not really, that's not a good one.
That's not the good kind to get.
Yeah.
No one says you've got the good kind.
Yeah.
Cancer.
We touched on it in the first podcast about degrees of cancer.
Yeah.
And, should you be like, give me the tier 1 cancer. I don't want the tier 3, depending on how we grade the tiers.
Sure.
We'll say tier 1 is
there is a lot of tiers with cancer.
Yeah, we'll say tier 1 is kind of the easy cancer, and 3 being a really rough one.
I was thinking tears like crying, trying to make the double entendre.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what that is?
Kind of tear. It's spelled different.
Different. Okay.
Yeah, just different spelling.
Gotcha.
We'll work. I'm gonna have to.
I'm not
with
good
you.
with English.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just speaking Spanish or something.
No, that's no bueno either.
But it's real.
Yeah.
Relative guilt where someone maybe come express to you their situation. Being a new situation they just found out, and you're like, man, I'm sure glad I ain't got to deal with
that.
Stomach cancer or esophagus cancer.
Right.
And one of the things I've learned through this whole process of having cancer, which is, man, you can have cancer of almost anything.
All kinds. You get elbow cancer.
Right. Like toenail cancer.
Man.
I don't even know and the crazy thing is, until you have it, you don't realize there's some technical term.
Right.
I've got the quotation marks up.
He's air quoting.
Air quoting again.
But yeah, you're not the first person to get that type of cancer.
Right.
Someone's had it before.
Someone's had it before, and they've made a name up for it.
Right.
Like, what is? We should Google that.
Oh yeah, cancer.
Right. They just come up with some kind of salifis to put on the back of it, and that's the cancer.
Right.
But reality is that does happen. And it happened to me. They explained to me, hey, man, I just found out I had stomach cancer, and I got this kind of percentage, and it's in stage 3, and blah, blah, blah. And they start going through the stuff that you all know, and you understand what they're saying.
Right.
You know what it means.
Right. And I think that's part of our responsibility as survivors. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, because you don't have to start a podcast or do anything incredible, but we do. Yeah, I mean, you're in the club, right? You're in the cancer club now, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
You're in. The cost of admission
lifetime membership.
Yeah, right. And admission is very expensive.
Admission is high.
But you're in, and you cannot get out.
Right.
But part of the responsibility is to initiate the new members.
I like that. Yeah.
Right. That's part of our job. Is that, and it's a burden, but it's our burden, right? But that's part of it. Is that no matter what you're doing, you're now in the club, and you're going to be able to have a conversation with people that have cancer that people who don't have cancer will never have.
Right.
Right? Doesn't matter how close you are or how much you love them or what they read about cancer or know about cancer. Until you have cancer, you can't have that conversation.
You can't.
But the people that just got cancer are terrified. And don't know who to talk to. That is our job. And that's how I think I am dealing with this guilt. In a better way than in any other more healthy way, besides the enormous amount of drinking. I'm just kidding. I don't drink that much. I don't drink anymore or any less.
I've hung out with him.
But I think being a guide for the new members.
I like that.
Hey guys, this is going to be rough, but we're here. We offered a type of hope, right? Like we made it through. We crossed the river.
And I think that's a big piece to it. Is offering hope.
Yeah.
That's what survivors do. That's why we have to get over the guilt trip.
Yeah.
And
because if you're sitting around feeling woe is me, and you're not going to do it. You can't be hopeful, and
you're doing it. You're doing your success story a disservice.
Yeah.
by getting into the guilt trip portion of it and getting locked and stuck there. I mean, once again, we understand that it's real.
It's part of the process. That's okay. There's nothing
Right.
wrong with it.
But just don't stay there.
Don't
Don't
tread
stay in
water.
stay in that funk. It's important, like you said, to bring hope. It's the reason why, and you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to do a podcast or anything like that.
Right.
It's whatever you decide to do, but make sure you tell your story, because you could run into somebody in the grocery store.
Yeah.
And it might not be them. It might be a family member. And just having that kind of conversation. And I'm not telling you, hey, to walk into a grocery store and just say, hey, everybody, I got cancer.
Anyone
Anybody
want to talk about it?
I'm not
No,
telling
but
you
it'll
to.
come up, right? Like eventually
Exactly.
it'll come up. And maybe that's, I mean, there's things like this, and there's also the very intimate one-on-one conversations, you know, and that's awesome too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you are a survivor, there's somebody out there that needs to talk to you. Maybe there's
No
just
doubt.
one person, but there's somebody out there that needs you.
There's no question about that.
Right.
Whether it be face to face, like you said, a more
Yeah.
intimate one-on-one conversation, whether it's a group setting, if you
Right, in a support group or
support group, like I said, it could happen in the grocery line. Just becoming, I know what cancer has done for me. It's made me acutely aware of everything around me, from the very big things to the more simple things.
right.
And if you pay attention enough, you'll see the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll know.
You'll know when it's there.
You'll know the moment. I just want to say, in my Live Strong program, there's 2 individuals, and hopefully we'll get them on the podcast in the future. One of the gentlemen is dealing with, and this is about that relative portion again. His story is he has lung cancer, but he's never smoked.
That's a bummer.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking to myself, who am I to complain about multiple myeloma?
Right.
Like, this guy, out of all the things that he could possibly thought of before they told him that in the world.
Right.
First of all, he probably wasn't thinking about cancer at all.
No.
He and not to get too deep with his situation, I'll let him explain it, but he got some other medical issues that he probably would have thought be more on the lines of leading him maybe down that path of not necessarily death, but he had some other medical issues.
Right.
But to not smoke and get lung cancer?
Yeah, that's messed up.
And we were doing exercise in the Live Strong program. We were talking. We talk in the beginning before we actually go do physical stuff. And he was sharing how his test results came back from his pulmonary testing. And it was all positive, so that's good news.
Yeah.
However, there was a exercise that they asked us to do in regards to what we would like to get out of the Live Strong program. And his list had a bunch of stuff that's normal. And he said he would like to cure his cancer. And when he said it, I felt it.
Yeah.
Like I could felt he was struggling. Because his situation is very new. He just found out 4 months ago.
Oh, geez.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're a year pushing off of our situation. And so I said something to him, and not to get deep with that, but I said something to him because I felt it that it needed to be said. And that's what I mean by I think you will find those moments where you owe it to pass on the success of you surviving.
Yeah.
You don't have to do something grandiose. So
No.
it could be simple, and you don't have any idea how that makes somebody's day, because it's happened to me
Right.
when I was at that point where
Yeah.
somebody said something to me and they don't know how profound that affected me.
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed, I was at the gym, and a woman that was there, she's been through cancer a couple of times herself. She sits me down and she looked me right in the eyes and said, "Welcome to the club." And I've been telling that to people, like that's been my line, like, "Welcome to the club."
Right.
Like, here you are, like you're in now, but like knowing that was there, that she was there, that here she is still thriving, still doing well, made me feel like, all right, maybe this isn't the end of the world for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gave me that first kernel
Of hope.
of hope, Because really, at the very second she was talking to me, it was pretty dark.
Right.
You know, it was pretty dark where I was. It was not. It was an aggressive cancer, and I didn't know what the heck to expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just her reaching out, saying, you know, welcome to the club.
It's
made all the difference in the world.
It's very. Sometimes it's the simplest things that, like you said, become like monumentous.
Right.
You know, it's this big thing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody has to process and deal with their own emotions in regards to guilt and guilt with cancer, because that's what we're talking about.
Right.
But processing that in their own way.
Yeah.
But I strongly believe you do need to go
Yes.
through the process. Now,
Yes.
however you decide to do that is really up to you.
Yeah.
But I do know you need to go through the process and get to some kind of end place or happy place afterwards.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Even if not even a happy place, maybe just a livable place.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, I don't think I'm ever gonna be happy about it, but I can function there.
Yeah, that might be a
Yeah, like a
better
functional
term.
place.
Yeah, functional place.
And you may need to talk to a counselor or a therapist or something. That's okay. That's cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing.
You probably got a little PTSD. I think we probably all do. Like, and I think my wife does a little bit too. Like, I think,
Yeah.
you know, she's been through. It was a war. And you know, a lot of cancer patients and their caregivers come out with some type of PTSD at the other side of it. If you need to go talk to someone like that, talk to somebody. If you need to talk to a support group, go talk to somebody. If you need to just find a cancer friend,
Yeah.
you know, find one. And unfortunately, there's a lot of us, you know, but yeah, find someone somehow. I would say don't try to do it alone.
I don't know if you.
You may not be able to.
I don't even know if you can.
I don't know you, but you know,
Yeah.
you might be able to, but it'll be easier.
I just don't think it's healthy.
It probably isn't.
I'm not saying it's impossible,
Right.
but I just really don't think it's healthy.
You'll probably miss something.
Exactly, and I think you.
Yeah, because like I think I'm pretty great just looking at myself, but when I talk to other people, they point out plenty of flaws that I wasn't even aware of.
You know what? I might feel the same way, but I have been. Some people have the uncanny ability to be brutally honest.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that's what I need. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. You know, just in general, you need to talk to someone, whatever you need to do to process your thing, do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Shoot us a message.
shoot us a message. And soon one day we'll give you a way to shoot a message.
There is a Facebook page called Dying Laughing Podcast.
I was just joking. Go ahead with the plug.
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page called Dying Laughing Podcast. So we'll post the links to this up there. We'll leave questions and places for you to leave comments. If you want to leave us a message, you can do that.
All that good stuff.
All that good stuff. I think we also have a Dying Laughing Podcast at gmail.com, but I have to double check that.
Okay.
It's either Dying Laughing or Dying Laughing Podcast. I think it's Dying Laughing Podcast at gmail.com.
I'm sure you can tell that this was his part of the job responsibilities.
Oh, he was doing the recording. Apparently, I'm in charge of the computer.
But ultimately, that's going to conclude this month's show.
Yeah.
Or week. I don't know.
I think we're doing weekly, but yeah.
Weekly, monthly. It doesn't. That
This
concludes
one.
the show.
Yeah.
That's what we'll say. We'd like to thank you for listening to Dying Laughing. Hopefully it wasn't unbearable. Hopefully we made you laugh a little bit
A little bit at least.
and gave you a little bit of
Little
insight.
sunshine.
Little
insight,
sunshine.
Yeah.
I like that. Little sunshine.
A little sunshine.
And we hope to see you guys next time.
Absolutely.
So thanks for listening.
Have a great day, guys. Be well.
One. Thank you so much for listening to the Dying Laughing Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, questions, recipes, insults. It really doesn't matter. Tim, tell them where they can reach us.
Well, this Friday night, we are going to be at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Central PA's Light the Night Walk. I am the honored hero, and I'll be speaking. Oya is lighting the night for all the survivors. That's at 5 o'clock at the John Wright Restaurant in Wrightsville, PA. And you can also find us on all the socials at Dying Laughing Podcast, or send us an email at dyinglaughingpodcast@gmail.com.